Welcome to the HIO Show, everyone. I'm Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette, joined this week by former Canadian Chris Nyland of TSN Radio 690, columnist Jack Todd, and our HIO blogger Mike Boone. Chris, I think the question a lot of Habs fans are asking after the game against Dallas is, did Coach Michel Therrien simply wait too long to put Alex Galchenyuk at center with Max Pacioretty?
You know, this thing gets beat to death. The fact of the matter is, he's there now. And they're doing well. I think they did a good job with Alex Galchenyuk. You know, everybody whined and moaned, get him at center, get him at center. Those people who do that don't really understand how difficult it is to play that position and play that 200-foot game. Listen, does he have good size this year? Is he bigger? Yes. Earlier on in his career, one, I know for a fact he didn't want to play there because it was too difficult. Okay, two, when he still had that slight frame and was getting pushed around a bit, it is so difficult to play in your own end and then get up the other end of the rink and try and do something offensively. So I think he was brought along at a good pace. I liken, and again, somewhat to like Pat Burns' handling of Joe Thornton in Boston. And look at Joe Thornton now. But you know, for all those who are really pushing for it and pushing for it and pushing for it, well, it's here now. The fact of the matter is, he's not a great playmaking centerman. He's more of a one-on-one player, a guy who's a shooter, and maybe that give and go stuff will come. We've seen flashes of it with Pacioretty in the past few games, which is a good sign. So he's evolving as a centerman and as an NHL player, and it took some time. I think they did a good job with him, despite what everybody thinks.
Now, Jack, you've been defending Michel Therrien.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure you've taken some heat for him from fans, but just what's your thoughts just on the way he's handling these young guys?
Yeah, first of all, I'm defending him, you know, on the issue we're talking about right now, which is developing young players, specifically Galchenyuk. And what I loved after last night's game was all the people, including his close bosom buddy, Mr. Marinaro, who were on, and their take on it was, Galchenyuk's playing great, so we have to fire Therrien. You know, well, where's the logic in this? Mm-hmm. You know, leave the rest of it aside for the time being. I completely agree with Chris. I think they developed him the right way, and I think a lot of what's been happening and the apparent ice time discrepancies and all that were less about how much he loves Desharnais and more with trying to protect Galchenyuk and bring him along. And the kid, you know, there are times earlier this year he would drive me crazy because he'd try to stick handle through 5 people with a guy open, things like that. He's improved enormously, and the player he's been the last month, especially the last 2 weeks, he's one of the best players in the league right now. I don't know how long he can sustain
What tends to be overlooked is in his junior career, he basically lost his last year of junior because of his injury. So, you know, you can kind of subtract a year from the developmental phase of his career. And even through this hot streak, he's got, 9 goals in 7 games?
9 goals in 7 games.
Only 1 assist. Yeah. So, you know, the playmaking may not be there.
But do you think, is Michel Therrien back behind the bench next season, Mike?
Yeah, I think so. Well, into September anyway.
Do you think they give him another chance?
I mean, why are you going to keep him to the end of the season and then fire him? I think you're going to give him another shot. Unless, of course, someone else gets involved and has a talk with Bergevin, which, who knows? But or maybe if a coach comes up that they just can't pass on. But I see him being here. I see them giving him another chance with Carey Price in the net. And
whatever changes he might make at the draft or maybe on July 1st.
Plus, he's been uncharacteristically cheerful these days, it seems, in his media briefings, especially for a coach whose team is in the toilet. He's practically giddy.
Well, Galchenyuk had 19 minutes and 10 seconds of ice time against the Stars, but he ranks 5th among the forwards on the Canadiens in ice time, and one of the guys he's behind is David Desharnais. What does he do next year with Desharnais?
Yeah, I can see that being a real problem, especially if you think that McCarron's developing fast enough to be a number 2 center. Galchenyuk has to be number 1 now, and no more screwing around. I think he's proven that. If he goes through a bad stretch, leave him there, let him work it out. They have nobody else with that kind of ceiling. He's a monster when he's on. So that if McCarron can play number 2, Eller to me is a very solid third-line center. You know, I don't know what they're going to do with Plekanec either, but I see no place for Desharnais.
Now, how much, Chris, do you think the Desharnais-Pacioretty combination has to do with Max wanting to play with Davey?
You know, I don't know. there's a lot of talk that Max talked to the coach and this and that. Here's the deal. If that's going on, then the inmates are running the asylum. And I look at it with a couple things. If players are going, if say Galchenyuk, I don't want to play center, and the coach says, okay, you don't want to play, we'll take you. Okay, I don't want to play with anybody but Dejanay. Okay, okay, PK's on the ice 2 minutes. Power play? 2-minute shifts. Who's running the show there? Who's putting their foot down and saying, no, this is the way it is? So if that's the case, then the whole thing's screwed up. But I think it's more the coach going with what's comfortable, what's worked in the past, and he just stuck with it because and again, when did they mesh? Early on when David was up here, and then back when they were in the American League together, and it's failed miserably as a line the past year and a half.
I think they have a logjam at center, which they're going to have to do something possibly before the draft.
Yeah,
but I would think maybe Eller would be moved. You can't. Who's going to take Dejarnay's contract?
Well, one more year at $3.5 million. Now, Sven Andrighetto also on that number one line played number one line minutes. He's been wasted, I think, playing third and fourth line minutes.
Yeah, he's a big offensive guy if he's anything, and I think,
did I hear the word "big" applied to Sven Andrighetto?
Well, Pacioretty said after the game against Dallas, he says he's not a big guy. He says, but he's not afraid. Like he throws like that. First goal, he set up Galchenyuk, went in, knocked the guy off the puck, made a nice pass in front. So it's another case of the Canadiens. Their little guys play big, and their big guys play little, which is one of the things that they've had a problem with this season. And we'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back, everybody. Chris, after the game against Dallas, one of the things that Pacioretty talked about that he liked about playing with Galchenyuk is Galchenyuk's patience coming out with the puck from his own zone, and it allowed Max to hit the opposing team's blue line at full speed. This is something you've talked about before on this show, about Max sort of standing still at the red line, chipping the puck into the other end. Yeah,
it's good when your centerman comes back to get the puck and someone gives it to him. And you have that speed. And I've always say Max is wasted standing up there at the red line. Saw it again last night. Times he just standing there, he chips it in the zone. I'd like to see Max come back with his centerman and be able to be an option coming up the ice. Galchenyuk has a puck. When he gets it with speed and he comes into the middle there, he has that shiftiness where he can get by at least one guy, and then things will open up for his wingers, especially a guy like Max. But if Max is standing still, Galchenyuk's coming with the puck, he's of no use, and yes, he'll come late, but still, you want Pacioretty being available for that centerman there, coming with speed and being able to use it on the outside.
Now, Mike, another guy who's been impressive getting extra ice time calls, the injuries, is Greg Pattern on defense. He had, 20 minutes of ice time against Dallas?
I think it was 21 minutes or so, and he's coming along nicely. He had a difficult, since he became a regular, I guess, maybe 10 games ago or so, there were a couple of mistakes, and Therrien being Therrien, when you make a mistake, you don't see the ice for quite some time. But he's looking pretty solid, and I think either he's elevating Emelin's game or vice versa, or they're just
They seem to be a good physical pair together.
Yeah, they are.
Now, with the new guys they've picked up, Jack, just your first impression of Philippe Danault. Mark Bergevin said he likes him. He's like a bulldog, plays 200 feet on the ice. We're talking about the center. He was 9-3 on faceoffs against Dallas.
He's had a couple big games in the faceoff circle, which is huge, and he does battle. I like that. I like it with Galchenyuk. To me, one of the most surprising things about the kid is you have a major talent here, but he's not a dog ever. His biggest fault is keeping the puck too much, but he'll battle. And Danault battles, They need more of this. I like this. In a way, it's a blessing in disguise, the injuries, because, guys like Danault are playing, Pattern is playing, Galchenyuk's getting the minutes, things like that. Because really, this whole season is an audition for next year.
Yeah, it's evaluation camp, basically.
It's basically a free 15-game training camp for next season. Now, Stéphane Matteau, another one of the new guys. Chris, 6'2", 220 pounds. To me, my first impression, he looks like a big guy who maybe doesn't play up to his size. Just your thoughts about him.
Yeah, at times he hits, at times he gets there, at times he doesn't get there. I don't know. This guy was a problem child, apparently, in junior, missing, not taking the team bus, all this stuff. I worry about that. This is another one that could blow up in the face of Mark Bergevin as far as these projects he takes on these reclamation projects, these misfit toys, if you will, and they blow up in his face. So I hope at least one works out for him.
Well, one that seems to be working out, Jack, is Mike Brown. He had 10 minutes of ice time against Dallas. He had 9 hits. He hit in LA. He hit everything that moved. I'm wondering why Bergevin waited so long to add a guy like this after the Cassian disaster.
Yeah, I think he was convinced. They keep getting convinced that the league is going to change and that the physical player doesn't matter. And maybe it doesn't matter as much as when he was kicking butt all over the place, but it still matters. If you don't have Mike Brown, it makes everybody on your team smaller. And the combination of both Brown and McCarron out there and some other guys who are hitting, it's all totally
But it's contagious. I mean, they would hit the Stars 40-25.
Yeah.
When was the last time?
And they've been
had 40
consistently
hits
out
in
here.
a
Well, certainly
all year.
against a Western Conference team.
Exactly. No, Michael McCarron, Mike, the biggest improvement I've noticed in him is his skating. He seems to be a lot quicker. He's shown he's not afraid to drop the gloves. He's not afraid to stand up for his teammates. He looks like he's ready for the NHL.
Yeah, I think he's up here to stay. I don't know whether he's going to be the second line center next season necessarily, but yeah, the kid has done everything right. Seems enthusiastic. Seems to work hard. Still not the most elegant skater in the world, but tries on every shift.
What's
Gotta give him
impressed
credit
you?
for
What's
that.
impressed you about him, Chris?
I like his size. I like his willingness. I like to push back, if you will, like he said. He's got to be careful, though. It's nice to go out there and fight, but if you get your face rearranged, like Mike Komisarek did, it can change you, believe me. And for him, I like that part, but be careful. If you get hurt like that, you break your jaw, your nose is all over your face at a young age like that, it can certainly set you back. So I like the fact that, I think he's a better skater than we give him credit for, and it's always tougher with big guys, right? Tenorti had the problem. We talk about his skating. So he'll get there. He's an eager kid, and I'm sure he'll work out down the road there. There's some offensive upside, but no, I don't think it's huge. But he's one of those guys, when you talk about tough teams, winning big teams, he's one of those players that are going to help you down the road win the Stanley Cup when the season gets long, when it gets tough. Like the LAs have them players, Anaheim's, San Jose's, all those big Western teams. And like you said, Jack, well, the league's always going, it's fast league, the red line's out, blah, blah, blah. And it's always the tough teams. Yeah. And I'm not saying fighting tough, the tough, solid teams, physically tough, and big teams. And you can have all this.
Who's left in the spring.
We're just talking about David Deharnay. Well, why is he having a hard time? Figure it out.
After the game in LA, Max Pacioretty said that every time he touched the puck, he got hit. And hit hard. And that's the thing with the game there. And with Michael McCarron, I think he could help the power play also, just by parking him in front of the net. He's a big body, and he seems to have pretty good hands
besides Gallagher.
More so than Gallagher, exactly.
That's right. And if you put him out there with Gallagher, maybe he'll help defend Gallagher a little bit also.
And that's another thing. Gallagher, I wouldn't play him another game this year.
But
even if he gets out there. He said 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring him back for the last week. I wouldn't touch him.
And it looked like it was probably a groin the way he did the splits.
Whatever it is, just give the kid a break.
I think maybe his style's catching up to him a little bit at his size.
No matter what, it's always people are going to say that. He can't play any other way. So if it's going to catch up at some point, but I think it's still a little early.
Okay, we'll wrap up here quickly, Jack. PK Subban, is he going to be on Team Canada for the World Cup?
Honestly, I don't think he will be. They're stacked with that right-handed defenseman thing that's Babcock's obsession. And actually, I don't think at this point he should be, because he's going to sit there as the 7th defenseman and waste his time. He should be here getting ready for this.
Oh, he'd be good for PR, though, won't he? Good for the excitement around the team, won't he?
Oh, yeah, but, they're hyping this enough for the Toronto Cup of Hockey there.
So Bergie is part of the management team?
Yeah.
Yeah? And he can't get his player on that team?
The Toronto Cup of Hockey, like you said, Jack. That's it for this week's show. We'll see you again next week.